it is for that day or that week or whatever. So it really is a remarkable set of circumstances where now we have people who have been through nearly 5 months of this, because starting in late September, so we've got October, November, December, January. Now we're in the four complete months and going into the half of the 4.5 months that these occupations have been going on, and sometimes with great strength and great enthusiasm and wonderful events where national coverage is happening in New York and Washington, San Francisco, Oakland, Honolulu, wherever it is. And then times when things kind of fade back, they're kind of slowing down, and I think that's where we find ourselves right now in virtually all of the occupies. Trying to hold space. Not that space is the critical thing. Space is just a part of it, but it's not the real. It's not the idea machine. I mean, it's the ideas of how you work, how you change things, and certainly occupying space gives you a physical presence, and when the authorities start coming down at those ideas, and the first thing they go after is your space, then that's where the publicity comes in for what you're doing. And while just in the short time I've been back in Honolulu, where 2 weeks ago it was when the state decided it would come after, or the city come after the tents down in Thomas Square. And 4 days of coverage, 4 days of photographs, where people out in the hinterlands may have thought, Occupy Honolulu, it's gone. Well, all of a sudden, it's there. I mean, they're trying to take it down again, but it's there. The people are still there. And the same thing that's happened in Oakland, that's happened in Washington, D.C. with McPherson Square being cleaned out. And then people going back in. And the push and pull of people who are very, very committed to keeping the ideas moving and the projects moving and the confrontation with the system moving. Just in today's paper, not only do we have Doug's excellent letter to the editor about why we should be able, as citizens, to have space, but in our own paper here in Honolulu, we have, a New York Times article says occupiers vow come back, and then lack of clear goals could stall the protest movement. Well, but for the New York Times to again be having things in the paper, here it is 4.5 months later, shows that this thing is moving. It's still moving. It's not at all going under, even though it may be at a point on the mainland because of weather, of intense weather, of the police clearing out areas, but the ideas are there, and most of the occupies have found other types of spaces to be in rather than outdoors. That they have found locations where they can operate from. In New York, they have 3 different buildings that they've been using actually since early November. When the weather started getting bad, and then when Zuccotti Park was cleared out once. Big atriums that are filled 24 hours a day with people from the Occupy movement, of the various committees that come into the atrium on 60 Wall Street, and there's a massive metro stop or a subway stop right there. So that place is filled all the time. In this article that the New York Times has, not only does it mention, the day of nonviolent action, although they call it February 29th, but the other things that will be going on that even this article talks about will be on March 30th, a call for a national mobilization on the Mall in Washington. There will be different calls that will be coming from different groups. To mobilize everyone around the country, and even if you can't get to the exact place, to, as Carolyn mentioned, in Honolulu, for example, to have solidarity actions with whatever's being called by whatever group. The spirit is there. The motivation is there. Sometimes it's a little difficult, though, getting the people to go to where their heart is. And I think that's where sometimes right now at Thomas Square for Occupy Honolulu. I was there yesterday and gave a quick little talk, and we had 7 people that were there, and there were 3 or 4 other people who had things that they needed to be doing during that time, so they were in and out. But trying to get more people to come down and be a physical part of Occupy Honolulu. In fact, how many of you all have been a part of Occupy Honolulu? Great, good. And how many of you all who haven't yet would say this next week, I'm going to make it a point to go down and spend a couple of hours, a couple of days a week? Yeah, come on. Come on. Are we going to change things or not? We can't change things just sitting at home all the time. So we need to have people who will take that commitment to say, yeah, I'll get on a subway in New York City and I'll spend 45 minutes on the subway to get down to wherever this is. Or I live in Honolulu and I'll get on the bus and I'll spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, to get down there and just help out, to hold those signs, to be there, to help with whatever is going to be happening here in Honolulu. As Honolulu and the other Occupy groups that are on the different islands, as they figure out, as we figure out, what are the specific things that we want to be working on in the next week, the next month, and then how to connect in with national calls. The sub-headline here, a lack of clear goals could stall the protest movement. A lack of clear goals. Well, it seems like somebody's thinking we've got some pretty clear goals when they start sending the cops out after us. And I'll just kind of end my part of this with a commentary on the brutality of the police. I mean, it is stunning. It is unbelievable what the police have been allowed to do. And in many ways, what the police have been told to do, I think. That they've been told that they want these streets cleared out. And they don't, and it doesn't matter what you have to do to those people to do it. The use of pepper spray directly in people's faces, I mean, the lack of discipline within the police, the lack of any sort of punishment for police that are violating their own internal police rules and rules for discipline and things like that. The Ninja Turtle commando style of operations toward nonviolent protesters is just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. People who are, I mean, and it's across the age spectrum. It doesn't matter whether you're 16 years old or you're 85 years old. The police are going to come after you, and they're just going to stand in your face and pepper spray you right there, or beat you with a baton, knock your legs out from under you, run over you. It is one of the most abhorrent things that I've seen in a long, long time, to see how through the width and breadth of our country this is going on. Fortunately, in Honolulu, the day that I saw the takedown of the tents here, other than one arrest, and it was not a violent arrest, things were, I would say, reasonable. Not that I think they should have been there to take down the tents, but the manner in which they did it is much, much different from what you're seeing at most of the other mobilizations throughout the country. And I certainly hope that the Honolulu police will never use the violent procedures that we've seen being used in these other places, where really people that are out on the streets now, you really have to be very, very watchful, because the probability of there being violence directed at you as a peaceful, nonviolent protester by violent police officers who have no reason to be doing that to you and who will not be disciplined by their own police department is very, very high. And the call to challenge police brutality and the call to document this police brutality by always having your cell phone with you, to have your camera ready, to document and be willing to go to court to hold accountable police that are violating their own rules and codes of conduct is critical for us, because we've got to back the state off on this. We know that they're scared of the ideas. They're scared of their own class being thrown in jail. I mean, their own class being the leadership of all of this. Not the policemen themselves. They're victims of this in their own way too. And I think that's been one of the real strengths of a lot of the Occupy movements, is that they put out the calls to the police officers to try to engage them, to talk about that they are part of a system that they are getting screwed too. The call for challenging police brutality against innocent protesters is something that I totally agree with. And as soon as my new hip gets better, I'm going to be out on the streets. But I'll tell you, it does make you. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of actions in the last 9 years. I've been arrested an awful lot and pushed around a little bit. But I'll tell you right now, I think it is very. I mean, I will not be going out on the streets because I know the probability of getting hurt. And with this hip, I don't want this hip to be flying out of my hip joint. So, you know, the intimidation that somebody like me, somebody like you all, you know, says, I can't do that, because the probability of those cops doing this is really high. That's scary, and that's something we have to back them on. So with that, why don't I stop and we open it up? Thank you.
Okay.
We're going to have
to. I'm going to ask all the devices to be turned off to give people